Just like last time, we're going to do a quick tier list, and then we'll go ahead and get into the stream. So today we're going to be doing a tier list on the Guardians. I'm not going to go too in depth about each Guardian, but I'm just going to tell you what I think and where I think they should be. And let's go ahead and get into it. First gods first. Let's talk about Ares. Ares is a mixed bag. He gets a lot of benefit for building tanky and building aura items to support his team because he gets 30 power per aura item, so that's very strong for him. He does insane amounts of damage. He has a really good team fighting ult, really strong cripple, and so he always has some kind of damage output going. His biggest issue though is that he lacks hard CC other than the cripple, and even though he's a beads burner, his ult does come out relatively slow, and he himself still needs help in team fights, right? So, and he's also really not a peel god, so he can't really support. He is a pretty strong solo laner though, so that does boost him up a little bit. Plus, the mystical mail change helps him deal out a lot more damage. So for me, I would personally put Ares as. I want to put him in A. I really do. But I think the other some of the other Guardians are just outdo him in some departments. So I'm gonna put him in B. Top of B, just outside of A, but I feel like it's a B. Also, again, this isn't in any particular order, so I'm just putting them where I feel like they. Next, we have Artio. Again, Artio is another mixed bag. She has a lot in her kit. She has a long-lasting cripple, like 6-7 seconds. Long of a cripple. She has a protection shred. She has a lot of damage, a lot of abilities to throw at you. He does have minor healing. It's not great healing unless you start slapping on healing items that help her heal. She's very strong, but I feel like Artio is mostly picked for counter picks. If you want cripples, if you want stuns, if you want all that good stuff, all that CC, you could pick better people. Essentially, Artio is like a jack of all trades. Her saving grace is like Ares, she does a lot of damage but has more CC, other than having an ult. So for me, I think she's A tier. Maybe not high A, but definitely A tier. Next, we have Athena. I don't even have to talk about it. If you've been playing Smite lately, you know why Athena is really strong right now. Her buff to her 2, her team fighting ult, how much damage she can reduce, the block stacks, how much damage she can pump out, blows, taunts, she has it all. Go ahead and move on. Bacchus. Bacchus, I like this is a recurring theme. He has decent CC. His ult hits very hard. And he can be very tanky. How I kind of picture him is like the tier of the Guardians. Other than the passive, he can just make himself really tanky, give himself power, has a knock up, a stun. Issues. You can stop him from stunning you. His mana consumption early is absolutely abysmal. He's not really that strong as a support or a solo. Can flex him in the jungle, but it's really not that great. But he does help in the damage department a lot, and having anti-heal in his 3 with a knock-up does help him. So when he does get to the mid to late game, he does become a little bit more of a menace, but I don't think it's worth that really bad early game. So for me, I think he's B tier. Cabrakan. Now, if you've watched my streams before, if you've watched my YouTube videos, you know Cabrakan is one of my main gods. Definitely my main Guardian. But this is me personally. I think he is one of the best Guardians in the game. Debatable, one of the best gods in the game. He has two stuns, a tremble. That wall that he has really messes up team fights and separates teams or stops them from being able to run away. Stops exit and entry points. Really big issues is that he does need Blink to be a a huge menace, even though he does have that movement speed. Stimmin is one. Bracken is, without a doubt in my mind, one of the best guardians in the game. Plus, he has a 3% damage mitigation passive at all times, right? So he's gonna be naturally tanky while also bolstering a lot of damage and can set his team up for success. Plus, he's an amazing solo laner, an amazing support, and he can jungle an S tier guardian. Up next, we have Cerberus. I've been getting put on Cerberus a lot more lately. Before, I thought he was just meh. Now, really looking at him, his damage values are really high. He has a slow. He stops healing. He basically steals people's healing. He has an Ares X type ult. He's a beads burner. He does a lot of damage. Great solo laner, great support. Me personally, I think he's A tier. Same issue. I think he's top of A. I don't think he's like. I don't think he's S, but I definitely think he's A. But at the end of the day, his CC requires you to have a little bit of aim with his one. Even though, and if you hit it, it hits very hard, and then it stuns. The tough issue is hitting it. It's a lot more lenient now than it used to be, but the fact that you still have to, you have to preemptively know where they're gonna be at, or there's a lot of issues with this, at least in my opinion. But the fact that he does have anti-heal built into his kit while also being able to sustain himself and having a really strong fighting ult, I think Ares is here. Next, we have Cthulhu. I have a lot to say about Cthulhu. He's very oppressive in the solo lane. He has very strong clear. He has a lot of self-mitigations. That ult changes fights, whether it's a team fight or a one-on-one, or even if he's getting jumped himself. He does a lot of damage. He's very tanky. Issues. He doesn't have any CC. And the CC that he does have requires a lot of setup. A lot of people will say that he's an amazing support. I don't think so. Especially with how the meta has changed for supports. I think that supports with a lot of CC is more in. Namely, supports that are peel guardians, or peel supports. People who can apply CC and get the team out if they need it. Cthulhu is not one of those people. He's completely aggressive. Kind of just like Ares. But the fact that he's extremely hard to kill, soaks up a lot of damage, can set up his team really well with his 2-3-1 combo. And then he can heal people in his ult, has knockups, a lot of damage. I think he's also... Am I smoking if I put him in S? Smoking if I put him in A. I'm not entirely sure. For me, I want to put him in S, but the fact that he has no reliable CC at any given moment, I want to put him in A. And the fact that he's not really a peel guardian, he's... S. I'll put him in S. Simply because he's so hard to kill and bolsters so much damage and changes team fights so well. Borderline A. Borderline A, but I will give it to him. Fafnir. Doesn't really have a lot of flexibility. His CC, his main stun outside of his ult is a skill shot, and it only stuns one person. He does have an attack speed stim. He has a really strong passive where whenever he gets gold, the more gold he has, the tankier he becomes, so he can stay in lane a lot longer than a lot of other guardians can. Plus having a self-heal, attack speed stim, and a disarm. Then if you add in his ult, he has 2 extra stuns. But when he comes out of the ult, if you know how to manage it, you shouldn't have this issue. But the fact you gotta worry about it, the fact that when he comes out of his ult, he becomes kind of like a sitting duck, and he's forced to eat a lot of damage. It does hurt him. I'm gonna put him in A. But at the end of the day, very solid guardian. Ganesha, S tier. He has everything you need: damage, CC, silence, and a root into a knockup. That ult on a very low cooldown does mad amounts of damage, and even then, if you get them inside of that ult and they don't have their run move or don't have a run move, they have to risk taking the damage, walking through the ult and getting slowed, or have to stay there in the center of that ult and just get hit by everybody. he changes fights very well, and the fact that he's completely selfless, you know, whenever you get a kill on a minion or a god, you instantly give it to somebody else, giving them most of the EXP. So he's a support through and through, right? And then you can have some fun playing him in solo lane or in jungle, because if a Ganesha coming out the jungle with full damage, you get rooted on that ult is terrifying. So I would have to put Ganesha at S tier. The fact that having a silence in that ult alone makes him, but then you add in that passive and the one that gives power to his teams. You know, he has a lot going for Ganesha. Geb has that shield. That shield is very strong. If a good Geb knows when to use it, because it cleanses any CC that's put on that god at that moment. So if you get hit, for example, if you get hit by a silence, and then Geb puts that shield on you, that silence is taken away. If you get hit by a stun, that stun's taken away. Any CC that's put on you with that shield is very strong. Plus, gods having a shield is nutty. You know, just being able to give out or give yourself a shield is very strong. Plus, his ult does health damage and stuns in a giant AoE. And then he has the knock up in his 2. The hardest part about his kit is his 1. Being able to knock people back into your team and not away from your team. You know, that does take a little bit of skill. You can't just take the lame way out and just do it point blank just to get the slow. So I think he is A tier. Pretty strong Guardians. And I hope y'all are seeing a pattern. Most of the Guardians are very good. They have issues, but at very bare minimum, they have something going for them. Plus being magical. Up next, Jormungandr. I have so many mixed feelings about Jormungandr. He does a lot of damage. His passive is dumb, and he has a cop-out ult. And if you watched my last video, you know that I hate cop-out ults. But his cop-out ult also sets the team up very, very well. Issues. No great CC. He has a knock-up, which is good. He has a tremble, which is good. And then his ult, every hit knocks you into the air. Good. But outside of that, all he really has is a slow and damage. No real peel, no real anything. The only great thing about him that's different from everybody else is his passive, which makes it to where he can't be moved. And a lot of people don't realize that a lot of characters have abilities that force an opponent to move. So he counterpicks King Arthur, counterpicks characters like Gilgamesh, you know. So he has a lot going for him. Between A and B, I'll give him A simply because of that passive and the amount of damage he can pump out. But I can't really see him getting any higher. Khepri. Definition of an A tier character. Not super broken, not super bad, not bad in any way, shape, or form. He has a root, a pull, 2 great forms of CC. He has tick damage that gives, I'm pretty sure it gives protections and protection shreds, so that's very good. And then everybody knows about that ultimate, where he can just bail somebody out at any given point. Issues, not really a lot. He has a really good passive. Hey, what's going on, Choke? And until Neka said hey. Anyway, continuing. Khepri being A tier. Has a lot going for him. Issues, I would say, is that even though he has CC, his CC really can only affect one person, and his ult can only affect one person. But that's fair, because if his ult can affect his entire team, he would be the best Guardian in the game. Without a doubt in my mind. But because it only affects one person at a time, A tier. Kumbhakarna, B tier. Great starter support, though. Shrouded in CC. Great passive for people who just like to unga bunga at people. Good banishing ult. Issues. Long casting times, long cooldowns, bad mana management. Only decent damage. So, good support. Just okay. But overall, he's just okay. What's going on, Tamario? Next god, we're going to talk about Kuzenbo and his placement. Kuzenbo, Great solo laner, pretty decent support, does a lot of damage. His ult, even though it interrupts a lot, can disrupt his team, which is so it's a double-edged sword. Really good ult and a low cooldowns, and stops the enemy team from really doing anything unless they have beads, but it disrupts his team as well. And his kit is very selfish and very not necessarily skill shots, but setup. So I want to put Kuzenbo B tier. Close to A, not quite there, but I feel as though he deserves to be B. Almost A. Up next we have Sobek. A really skillful Sobek can change the game. Runs early and mid game. Late game he does struggle a bit. He does take a little bit of skill to use as far as his one goes. And grabbing people and setting people up. But his ult slows and AoE, does good amounts of damage. Self-sustain with anti-heal, knock up, pull. A lot going for him. Hey. Sylvanas, B tier. Higher B tier, but still B tier. Sylvanas has a great heal. He has... Oh, actually, no, I take that back. I'm going to put him in A. Sylvanas has a heal, he has a knock-up, he has a pull, he has a root which spreads protections. A lot going from him. Only issues is that takes a lot of skill to use. Does take quite a bit of skill. Oh, he just but 2 of his abilities or 3 of his abilities are AoE. It's true. But to me, what makes Sylvanas is that pull. If you can consistently hit that pull, he's amazing. On top of being a Rage Guardian, he's amazing. But you do need a little bit of skill to use it, right? So I think Sylvanas is A tier. Up next we have Terra. I think Terra is S tier. Bottom of S, but I think she's S. And here's my reason why. She has a root, she has a stun, she has 2 heals. That ultimate will change a team fight in a heartbeat. And it's not for the heal. Even though that heal is strong, it's not for the heal. It's the fact that if you hit somebody a certain amount of times while they're in that ult, they take burst damage. That burst damage adds up. On top of the fact that people don't really realize this, because I know people don't read, if you just have a totem up or some kind of standing stone up, she can't be moved, or she can't be knocked up, and she can't be moved actually, and then her auto attacks do AoE and they slow. So a really skillful Terra can carry a game. She's bottom of S only because she does take a little bit of execution, but if you have the execution, she's an S tier Guardian. And she can be flexed in solo and in support, so she can have multiple roles. Up next we have Xingqian, A tier. Xingqian has 1 good CC move, which admittedly is all he really needs. He has tick damage, great self-sustain. His weakness, actually, still A, but bottom of A. Xingqian has a good ult and a good 2. Where he suffers is his 3 and his 1. His 1 can do a lot of damage, but it's not really anything to cry home about. And then his 3 is selfish and only gives him protection and doesn't really do anything. So I think he's A. I want to give him A, but when I really think about it, he's B. When I really think about it, Xingqian is a B tier Guardian. You know, still strong, but B. You know, nothing to cry home about, and he's okay. I think a good Xingqian can carry a game too, but not as well as anybody else above him. So I think he deserves to be in B. Yemoja. I have so many mixed feelings about Yemoja. Yemoja is a very powerful Guardian. Her Omi though is a double-edged sword, right? she doesn't need to use mana, but she needs to have cooldowns and mana to be able to regen her Omi faster. And then she does take a little bit of skill setting up with her 3 to pull people back or help people escape. Her ult is Unga Bunga. You don't really need to think too much about her ult. Her 2, virtually useless. Virtually, not very useless, but you're rarely ever gonna use it. Like, why? It costs 3 Omi, does very little damage, and then the heal you get, it's a chunky heal for your team, but you'd much rather just use your 1, which costs 2 Omi, and has a stun and slows behind it. So, and then to play Yemoja completely optimally, you need to have. She has the same issue as Horus. If you watched my last video, she's very team reliant. So I can't, in good conscience, give her A. I'll give her A, top of A. Can't really give her A. And finally, we have Ymir. S tier, up there with Athena. He had that freeze is a beads burner, and it lasts for 2.5 seconds. Imagine being stunned for 2.5 seconds. Why does any Guardian need a 2.5 second stun with Polynomicon as his passive, and then that wall? That wall is godlike. Yeah, Tom, it's a long stun for no reason, and then you'll probably never be able to do it. And then he has the hardest hitting ult in the game. Save for Ganesha. Ganesha actually has the hardest hitting ult in the game, but he has the hardest hitting ult in the game that takes no skill. You just pop it in your CC immune, and if you let him charge it up, he's gonna kill somebody. That ult hurts. He's one of the best supports right now. Really good solo laner. And then you get jungle with him because he has Poly built into his kit. Ymir is an S tier. S tier Guardian, no doubt in my mind. But that's the tier list for the Guardians. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And let's go ahead and head into the stream.